Welcome to the One-to-One podcast, brought to you by the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. The LTC is a program of the Illinois State Board of Education. We support all K-12 districts, schools, and educators in Illinois through technology initiatives, services, and professional learning opportunities.
Our work addresses high-needs technology and digital learning challenges, and we help schools increase access to and use of technology to improve educational opportunities for students. Your hosts are
Brian Bates, Associate Executive Director for Professional Learning,
and Matt Jacobson, Online Learning Coordinator. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our interview this week. We're talking with author and educator Mike Ribble, and we are excited to hear what Mike is going to be sharing with us today. Brian, have you had a chance to read any of Mike's work or look at any of the things on his website yet?
Yeah, I have. I've checked it out. I really like it, and it makes me more excited to have this conversation today for sure. So thank you so much for joining us today. I guess we'll kick it off by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Why might people know you, or maybe why should people know you, and what kind of work do you do?
Certainly. Thank you, both Matt and Brian, for having me. It's exciting to always get out there and have some of these conversations with folks, both here in the United States, but also globally. You know, it's really become a global topic. But, you know, the area that probably somebody might have seen me or heard of me is my work in digital citizenship. And so this is going on year 20 of talking and writing and presenting on the topic of digital citizenship. So been very, very lucky, worked very closely with ISTE over the years. Some of my first articles were way back. There's probably a lot of your listeners probably don't even remember the old L&L magazine, Learning and Leading magazine that ISTE used to put out. And wrote several articles for them back in the early 2000s. So aging myself just a little bit, but my beard does that too. So just, it's been an exciting time. You know, we started off with, you know, some really basic ideas. You know, when I did my dissertation work, my major professor, Dr. Gerald Bailey, really suggested that what needed to happen was a framework needed to be created in this area of digital citizenship. And that's where the 9 elements came from, and kicked off the first book, Digital Citizenship in Schools, which over a decade went through 3 different versions of the book. And by the third one, I think we finally got it right in the third one. But, you know, it just changes, you know, and we've seen tech changes, and we're going to continue to see tech change, and that's, you know, a big part of what we're going to discuss today is how these changes are occurring and how can we keep up as educators. So that's probably the biggest. I've been very fortunate. Traveled actually on 6 of the 7 continents. I have not been to Antarctica at this point. So if there's any penguins listening, I'm sure that you know, I would be willing to go and do a presentation, but met some amazing people all over the globe. So you know, it's been a great time. You know, COVID was a challenge for everybody, but I think we're on the backside of some of that, and so things have continued to ramp up. And but I guess on my day-to-day job, I am a tech director in a school district as well. So that's what I do Monday through Friday. Hopefully not over the weekends if we can help it. But right. It's you know, it does keep me kind of grounded in, you know, what exactly is going on in the classrooms as well. And being married to a teacher, an elementary teacher for the last 32 years also has kind of kept me grounded as well. So all of those are all aspects of me, and just hoping for the next 10, 15 years, see where things go.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, I first got to know you by reading that book, Digital Citizenship Handbook, in the classroom, probably edition 1. So I've known of you for a long time, and it's wonderful to know that you're just a regular down-to-earth guy like the rest of us, and I used that a lot when I was starting to work with teachers in classrooms. Certainly, like you said, during COVID, digital citizenship became so very important when, we were interacting with kids through cameras and over various platforms. A lot of teachers thought, okay, now that, COVID is, the worst part of COVID is behind us, we can get back to, the way we used to do things. And then last year, OpenAI brings out ChatGPT and releases it out into the wild. And educators, and even those of us who are familiar with technology, were kind of like, wow, what is this going to do for our classrooms? And I was very interested to kind of get your take on AI. How can teachers and educators in classrooms approach that responsible use of AI in, daily learning activities?
That's really been the last 6 months of my life, has really been, how do we, focus on this? How do we integrate it? And to be honest, I really believe that digital citizenship is a big piece of this, because, really digital citizenship is about that appropriate and responsible use that you talked about. So, falling back into, discussing how we look at the 9 elements, for those that haven't, you can go to the website, take a look at it. But, really about digital communication, collaboration, how, digital literacy, even, all the ethical pieces of, how we use it. So, as I was, thinking about these questions that we were going to have today, I thought, hey, why don't I kick it over to ChatGPT and see what kind of answers that
there you go.
give us. So I threw the questions in there, and the nice thing is that, a lot of the things that I was thinking about beforehand were the things that it brought out. So we're at least in sync, with those kinds of discussions. But really, it's about understanding, and that's the biggest piece with technology. And I think, where the fear comes in, and where districts and administrators and even at the state and the governmental level, that's where everything comes in. Is we go to this dystopian idea that the Terminator will come and take us away, kind of.
The robots are coming. The robots are coming.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the place that we tend to go to, because we've all watched the movies, we've read the books, all of those things. And it's something that I think we have to be at least aware of. I mean, there's always the potential with new technology, but in reflecting back, I talk a little bit about my history. I don't like to go back there a lot, but when Google first came out, we had similar kinds of discussions in education. That if you allow Google in the classroom, that students won't be thinking for themselves. All they're going to do is they're going to put in, the information, and then they'll get websites and they'll get articles and all of that. Now, does it happen? Certainly it does. But I think that we as educators also need to be thinking about how do we also make changes as technology changes. And I know that's difficult, especially in education. I'm around educators. I live with an educator all the time. And so I know that it's not an easy discussion, but the first step is really just understanding, and that's that digital literacy piece is, stepping back and understanding what it can and what it can't do. And, that's, I think, in any technology, that's what I usually tell educators is go out and understand it. And, I've talked to, different groups, and, they're really taking this next 6 months of really making it about educators and understanding what chat and others are, and really first stepping back and really understanding what kinds of AI there are, because there's very different parts of it. And I think sometimes we throw everything into this one pot and say, well, it's all AI. Well, usually we're talking about generative AI, things that can generate or create something. So chat gpt is a typical idea or thought of what a generative AI is. So we put in a question, it kicks out answers, and we mold it, in how we want it to look. So the next piece of that, and it's part of that literacy piece as well, is what do we ask it? Sometimes I think even going all the way back when one of the first editions of digital citizenship in schools was people really didn't even know what kind of search strings to use in Google or Bing or whatever it might be, whatever you might use. And that's you're only going to get the data out of it that you ask appropriately for. And that's when I kicked it over to ChatGPT, one of the first things it said, here are some search strings that you might want to try. And it kicked out, just AI in education, but it also, AI in special education, AI, in administration. So, there's different areas, and then we can further refine it, into different areas. But, it's really understanding that piece of it. But then, once we, kind of take it to that next level, is how are we going to transform education? And I think that potentially, and other educators have talked about this as well, is that this is an opportunity really that we could look at the transformative parts of AI and what can it do for us as educators, because potentially, if you're looking at it from a 10,000 foot view, we could be looking at having almost specific educational plans for every student by using the AI and using all the data points that come in, because we have test scores and we have information about students and all of those things. And those have been the pieces that we've talked about for years, is how do we personalize education and make it so that we're providing the best resources to our students and where they need those resources. And again, I'm not advocating for getting rid of teachers. I think that teachers will actually become even more important as that director, that more guide on the side, as opposed to that sage on the stage kind of mentality. So
absolutely,
really trying to look at how can we help students. And I think as educators, I think that's where the goal is what are we doing to provide that to students? And we can talk about well, if we just give them ChatGPT, they won't think for themselves. Well, then we as educators need to look at how we're presenting the information so that they can take it to the next level. And I looked today and I could not find the article, but there was a wonderful article that came out. It was way back in December, and I cannot for the life of me find this article, but it was an advanced placement English teacher, and she was writing about how she was going to rework her AP English classroom. And she was going to not hide from ChatGPT, but actually require the students to first have ChatGPT put out what it would give as an answer to a question. Then the student had to take that information, identify where it made wrong assumptions, where it gave poor information, and how they would improve upon it. And they actually were going to be required to give both of those back to the teacher. So not just what the ChatGPT as output, but also what they did, to build upon that and really grow that information. And I've done that in articles and things that I've written in the last 6 months or so, that it's really given me sort of a leg up and a place to really think from, as far as where I might go with certain topics. And most of the time, like I said, even for today's this morning's conversation, I found that a lot of the things aligned with what I was already going to discuss. But there's always some of those ideas that something new may pop up, and I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And building upon those kinds of topics, and not just assuming that we have absolutely every answer. And that's one thing about AI, is that we're starting to collect information from global positions, and really gathering information. And that's, I think, what a lot of companies are seeing as the exciting part of AI, is maybe we can answer some of the questions that we've been struggling with, now that we all can maybe have a common discussion point and not working all in different silos, and really trying to work together. And that's why I think it's important for education not to hide from things like ChatGPT and other AI, but understand where its place is. But and I'd given for the show links. There's UNESCO has put out a ton of information, but there's also from the Department of Education here in the United States has also identified a white paper on AI, and one of the main things is the human in the middle piece, and that you have to keep human, us, at the core of all of this, that we're not just going to hand this over to technology, to the computers, to the AI, but we need to be in charge. And that's always has to be the goal when we use technology, is that we are going to, as the users, we need to focus where all of this goes. So I think that was a long-winded answer for a 2-minute question.
No problem. No. And folks, will put links to all those documents in our show notes as well.
That was, wow. I wish I was actually taking notes, because there were a lot of things that I wanted to kind of follow up on, and there's a lot there. One thing I've absolutely loved is the connection to Google, talking about, I remember back when, I first started teaching, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit there, is on, not exactly the most veteran person, but I remember, having to teach students the proper way to search. Don't just type the entire question into the search bar, use the plus, use keywords, all that kind of stuff. And that's the same way with what we're seeing with AI, is you have to, the prompt generation, teaching students how to properly input what you want from it to get it back. And then Also, the other comparison to Google is, don't give assessments, or don't ask students questions that can be Googled for the exact answer. Same thing applies to this. Excuse me. Don't give students an assignment or an assessment that they can just easily go into ChatGPT and get the response back. Find other ways to include the technology to help them showcase that they've learned something, not just allow it to be used. So I thought that was an awesome comparison to something we've done in the not so recent future, I guess, but it's right there. I think that was a great connection.
Mm-hmm.
I have my next question goes, we've talked a little bit about the teachers and what they look like, what it looks like for them in the classroom, but what about administrators? What about people like you, people who live in the tech directors? Tech directors that I've heard from are being thrown into the fire on this one as well. School boards, talking about policies, talking about how are we going to address this in our school district? What kind of advice do you have for administrators, tech directors, school boards, any of those types of decision makers for thinking about AI policy?
Yeah, I will tell you that at the beginning of the school year, that was one of the hot topics for tech directors in our region, and I'm sure everywhere else. This was probably the big piece of it, and I know that your area, you have big districts and small districts that are out there, and that some of your larger districts, of course, they have staffs of 30, 40, 50 people that might be on the IT staffs, but we have different places that we have maybe one person or two people that are running the entire IT department.
Right.
And that's the concerning piece is, and I don't fault them for it, but a lot of the discussion was, we're just going to block it until we know what to do with it. And it wasn't that I wanted to reach out and just say, no, you can't do that, because I understand what it is to be a one or two man shop. It's difficult, especially when you're starting a new school year. You've got all of your devices that you're trying to roll out. You're trying to get labs set up. You're trying to, everybody, your phone is ringing, every 2 minutes, I can't get logged in. I can't do this, it's a lot. And for those districts, that I certainly understand it. Now, having said that, I think we need to look at policy, how we handle this. And, we've talked about this, both at the, local level, but at the Fed level. But, our state, did come up with, not for education, but for their administration, did come up with an AI policy. And I didn't learn about it until about 6 weeks after it had already been out. So it was fortuitous that I was at a conference and somebody said, "Oh, well, we already have a policy on this." So it was a good place to get started, and some place that gave me a leg up. But it was really about a lot of the things that we've already kind of discussed. Don't take everything that ChatGPT identifies as all gospel, that when it comes out that it's going to be always correct. That's one of the things that, we have to be wary of. So just because you put it into ChatGPT and it kicks something out, you've got to go through it, and you've got to identify where it may have made mistakes, especially if you're asking it to give references. And I will tell you that ChatGPT and other AIs do something that's called hallucination, and it will make up stuff, and it will make up things like references that look really, really good. And you need to be careful when you do those kinds of things, that you are going back and checking, to make sure it's accurate. So, that's, one of the biggies that the policy at the state level identified was going through, making sure that it is true, that you're not using the AI as policy creation alone, that just because you say, write a policy that says this and have ChatGPT. Now, having said that, when I was writing, it wasn't a policy, it was more of a procedural thing for our district. I did put it in a chat GPT to begin with, and then refined it from there, because I thought, well, I might as well, get some input, for, where this might go. So what I did was I took what the Department of Education, what their ideas, I think there was 10 topic areas that's in the Department of Education's white paper. And then I said, create a policy from these 10 elements and put it in there. And it kicked out, I thought, a fairly coherent. Now, it was bulleted very strangely, just because of the way that it kicks it out. So it took a little bit of massaging and reworking it a little bit, but it did give me some place to start. But like I said, reach out to different organizations around you and see. I know you added, Illinois' AI piece that talks about that. I think that's someplace, for your folks around there. But if you're in different states and different, principalities, whatever, you might go out and see, because a lot of organizations have already begun this, this process, because they feel like they need to get in front of it, which I agree. And a lot of pressure is being pushed back onto the organizations, to the Googles, to the Microsofts, to the others, that they need to also look at their own policies as well. And I think that's inherent for us as tech people. We need to put that pressure on them as well. But they're not the only people that are involved in this process. I think that we have to be, cognizant of where this goes.
Absolutely. And, when we look at your 9 elements, your 9 themes of digital citizenship, we see, there's a lot on communication and collaboration, etiquette, of course. Those are things that can be taught in classrooms. Mm-hmm. When we look at things like digital health and welfare, and digital rights and responsibilities. Yes, I'm looking at my other screen because I don't remember them all. Apologies. And security and privacy. Mm-hmm. We really need to build some partnerships, because yes, we can teach some elements, but where are they going to be practiced?
Yeah.
Outside of school as well. So how can we partner with families, communities to kind of include all stakeholders in reinforcing those good digital citizenship habits when it comes to AI?
I think this is a critical piece. This is something that, even going back to, my first book, I did do it as a dissertation piece, so I needed to focus on education, but I saw that parents and communities were critical in this discussion. And, over the years, and, I suggest that even today, if you go out to a restaurant or you go to any other, event, that you look around and you see that there are children and even adults that are on devices all mm-hmm. around us all the time. So, if we're going to be handing devices to students before they get into our schools, then that discussion needs to start in the homes, and that discussion of when we use devices, how we use devices, and begin to, help, educate our parents. And our hope is that at some point that we will be teaching these things all the way through school. And as parents, as students come out of school and become parents, they will have the skill sets to be able to help their own children. Now, I've been advocating that for 20 years now, and it's still been a little bit of slow going. I'm not saying it hasn't, in areas there have been some great strides. There's been folks all over, that have been doing this, but we need to help them along. And this latest book that we did, the handbook for educational leaders, that I co-authored with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Marty Park out of Kentucky. He actually works at the State Department in Kentucky, and I've known Marty for a long time. And we have a whole section on working with parents and, what kinds of things should you be asking and talking to them about, and really trying to reinforce that. But even more so, as you begin to build through these different elements, we've added another layer into this in this last book, where we've identified what we call the S3 framework, which is safe, savvy, and social. And it's a building block, very much like what we see in any other curricular area, English language arts, social studies, science, that we work from some base levels. If you're talking about English language arts, you can't write a paragraph until you understand nouns and verbs. Mm-hmm. And we believe that the same thing is true with things like understanding about passwords and multi-factor and securing your own information so that it's not out there, but identifying when we need to provide that and how we provide that to different organizations. So we are looking at this building process, and I think some of those safety discussions need to even start before we get them in our schools. And I know that this is going to sound, a little radical, but, we have, certain skills that we ask of our kindergartners that come into our schools. I think that some of these basic digital skills, we need to start finding out where they are in the continuum. And maybe they're at maybe they haven't had a lot of experience, which is great, but we need to know where they are so that we as educators can help them through this, through the process. Because I think there's always this assumption, well, kids grew up around technology. They've had, PlayStations or, whatever gaming system or, and they already know how to use technology. And an interesting, and I didn't share this white paper, but we just released a white paper about our new educators that are coming out of our teacher prep programs. And according to their statistics, and this is a 2023 study, that 56% of our new teachers do not feel comfortable about using technology in the classroom.
Wow.
And that to me was pretty striking. Do they know how to go to, social media, to Insta, to X, to whatever? Certainly. But how do you begin to teach a third grader how to use an iPad, a Chromebook, or whatever in the classroom and make it effective? And that's, I think, where, there's a disconnect. We have the technology, we provide that to people, but we're not providing the skills that are really necessary to be able to help them to be the best users and also educators of these tools.
Well, and I'm going to go a little bit off script here, and I apologize, Mike. You have on digitalcitizenship.net, you have a wonderful resource. It is sort of a progression chart, a continuum of when to teach and how to teach digital citizenship skills. And there are a lot of places where you can say, oh, that applies to AI also. So if for our listeners and our viewers, if you haven't been out to digitalcitizenship.net and you're trying to figure out when are we going to teach this and how, there's another great place to start on digitalcitizenship.net.
Yeah, thank you for the shout out. That's that's that S3 framework, and it's free. You can download it. You can modify it to your own district. That's really what it was there for. But it does provide that structure for building.
And I've got one other follow-up question for you, Mike. Also off script. I'm sorry.
No problem.
But when we look at the end user agreements for things like ChatGPT, Google Bard, and all of the others, you see all of these disclaimers and restrictions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be at least 18 to use these, or, if you're under 18, you have to have parent permissions. And, there are educators and administrators who are going to say, hey, that's it. That's why we'll block it, because our kids are under 18. How would you respond to them?
And I totally understand, and I think we need to be aware of those questions of, what can we use? And typically, when they're at that age of, 16 or 18, there's some real reasons why that, they shouldn't be on those sites. There are many sites and apps that are out there that, that are age 13. There are educational resources that are, under that. So I'm a big advocate to make sure that we are following policy, but also finding the correct tools that can help us to build upon these. And that's one thing that I've advocated for a lot of districts is begin to look at what are the skills that we need to build up to once our students reach that age of understanding. And I see it all the time. There was a app that came out beginning of the school year. I think it was it's one of the planets, Jupiter or Saturn, one of those that came out right at the beginning of the school year. But it was a sharing app, and it shared a lot of information about class schedules and personal information that we were very wary of, as far as what kinds of information is it sharing that's out there. But I think we need to help our students to have that information, that you don't have to share all of that information out there. If you want to share it with your friends, there are numerous different ways to share with individuals, with small groups that can work. The EU has been working on this for a long time. They've even wanted to bring that base level that is typically that age 13 up to 16 for a lot of years, and they've been working at it. There's been some states here in the U.S., Utah and Arkansas, have passed state laws that block or are supposed to block at a certain age, different social media sites. And it just, when you don't have something to identify the age of the student, except for tell me what your birth date is. And, most kids can count forward or backward, whatever age that they need to be, and then, put that date in. But the trickle down that we've found is that once you put that in one place, that can open up the gates to many other places. So if you're telling Facebook that you're 3 years older than you are saying you are, it now can connect and say, hey, do you want to use your Facebook login to log into this site? Oh, sure. And it's going to go back to Facebook and say, how old is this person? And that's, becomes, one of those pieces. And, how do we do this without giving away a lot of personal information, to, these websites, So it's definitely a tightrope to walk this.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's an interesting time for IT, that, we're kind of placed in the center, but also we're kind of aside. And so we're kind of in two different worlds, and I'm lucky that, I come from an education background. I was a high school science teacher when I first started out. So, I can certainly understand. I definitely, try to work with our teachers, with our administrators. How do you to better to work on this? And we've been very fortunate. We have what we call TIEs, which is technology integration and educational support staff that go out and help our teachers and our administrators. And they are very, very active with our parents as well. They go to parent-teacher conferences. They go to different meetings, and they share how best to use those technologies.
I relate it to driver's ed, right? You have to be 16 in most states to get your driver's license, but you also have to take classroom and behind the wheel instruction, and you have to get a certain number of hours, usually driving with your parents, before you can get that license that says you can use this machine on your own. And I think I like that analogy for, using AI or other technology tools.
It's great that you mentioned that, because I'll talk about Dr. Marty Park again. The University of Kentucky actually created what's called DDL, which is Digital Driver's License. And it is a free program that's out there for anybody. They've even gone international. I've worked with some districts up in Canada that they've used their DDL program. But it's exactly that. It's providing those skills before you get to the next level, and opening up more opportunities as they build on it.
That's great. You've alluded to this a little bit already, but what's in the works? What do you have on the horizon? What are you kind of working on right now? What can we expect to see next from you, I guess?
Working with another professor, Dr. Ann Guturi out of the University of St. Thomas, out of Houston. She has a plethora of connections at the international level. We are really opening this up to more of a global discussion. It's begun in a lot of places. You saw the UNESCO information. The UN has put out information at different levels, but it's definitely the students that I hear from most often now that are in doctoral programs or graduate programs that are working on this are overseas, not here in the United States. So there is just a growing need at that international level. But I think that having that as some of the backdrop, I think, will help everybody, both here in the US, but also, everywhere else. But it's interesting, we think that we're very different from each other, but they have a lot of the similar questions or concerns that we have in various parts of the world. So, we're working on that. We have a book chapter that's coming out that's going to be in a academic book, but we are looking to gather information both here in the U.S. but globally about what are the next steps. And really, AI is kind of at the heart of all of that. And how do we connect all of those dots? And I think that that's where people, I'm trying to pull back, and say, yes, I understand this is new and different, but it still falls under these same concepts. And we need to continue to look at the structure so that we're just not running at one technology after another, but really using it as a building block, as I mentioned with the S3.
Yep. You're walking the talk. There's that digital communication and collaboration, right?
Exactly.
Mike, this has been a fascinating discussion today. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. If people want to get in touch with you or extend this conversation or learn more, how's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, please. You identified in the show notes the digitalcitizenship.net. If you go to the contact us site, you can send information to me directly. I try to get back as quickly as possible, but some days are better than others. But usually within a couple of days, I try to get back in touch with folks. But love to have the discussions, even if they just have questions about, where they are, and I can help point them in some direction, give them some support. But, I really want to help our educators, find a path that makes the most sense to them.
Mike, this has been fantastic. I've loved every minute of it, and we really appreciate you being a part of this. So just wanted to say, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight here, and we look forward to sharing this out then with all of our listeners. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you both, and I understand that this will probably come out somewhere near Digital Citizenship Week in October. So if I don't see everybody, happy Digital Citizenship Week.
Yep. And check out digitalcitizenship.net. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, absolutely. We wanted to check back with you. We know that you had STEM Fest right after we published our last episode, and we kind of wanted to loop back around and provide our listeners and viewers with sort of a little follow-up. So tell us, how did STEM Fest go?
STEM Fest was amazing. It was amazing. It's every year, you build up through the planning of it going, oh my gosh, you think of all the things that you've got to do. And then the day happens and you see the families and you see the kids and the smiles and the how excited some of them, the kids and adults, get when they've tried something new or learned something or saw something that they hadn't seen before. So it was a fantastic day.
That's cool. So what do you think really, what do you think the big attractions were there?
So one of the fan favorites every year is the soldering stations. Build a Blinky. Yes. Yeah. Build a Blinky has been a partner with us for many years. They've been at STEM Fest quite often. I think they said that their station filled up after the first 15 minutes and stayed full the entire day. There was a line. Everybody wanted to learn how to solder and build a Blinky pin. Huge. Again, that one's always a draw. We had some really amazing crowds at our second annual Robotics and Rover Expo. And
cool. Tell us about that.
So this is really neat. This came out of an idea that our robotics and rover team had last year. Because due to COVID and everything, the teams had been working on robots and rovers and had never had a chance to really go out and compete with them or get a chance to showcase them. So last year at STEM Fest, the two teams got together and decided, they approached us and said, hey, we want to do something at STEM Fest. And so we helped them. It's a student run, NIU student run aspect of the fest, of STEM Fest. And they set up in Anderson, they build an arena, they come up with some different arena structures that will showcase their robots. They invite other teams from other universities. And so this was the second year they did it. They even built a mini BattleBot arena where they had the smaller ones. I love BattleBot. And what's really cool is we've partnered them with First Robotics. We have some high school First Robotics teams that come in as well. And it's really showcasing these student-built robots. And this year, we always, every year, we've got buses of students that come from different surrounding schools. And some of them got to start there. And so they had some little demos that they talked about. And it's really exciting for our middle school, our elementary kids, our high school kids to see these are what high school kids are building and these are what NIU students are building. You can come to NIU and be part of these clubs that are building these rovers and robots from scratch. And that's really cool. We had the Be Pro, Be Proud truck here this year, which was a first. And this is
about that.
It's an 18-wheeler that
Oof.
pulls up, and inside are different simulations and activities where people can explore the different trades. So there is a diesel truck driving simulation, there's a train driving simulation, there was a machine area, there were some robotics areas. I think there was a lineman simulation. So it's really kind of a place to explore some of the other careers that we don't think of as STEM careers, but are very much STEM careers. And so that was actually brought in by our event, one of our big event sponsors, Meta. And so they partnered to bring that in, and that was really neat. Oh goodness, we had so many different things going on, from the weather balloon launch, which is always a fan favorite. That's another one that every year we work with Dr. Victor Gensini, who launches a weather balloon to collect active data. And then we talk about the data. We had the art department was doing cyanotypes out in the beautiful day. Oh my gosh, we could not have asked for a more perfect day, which is exactly what the art department needed to do cyanotypes and do some sun printing. So many neat things. It was, with this year, one of the different things we did, we zoned the STEM Fest a little different way. And so we had a health and wellness zone. So to see all of the different booths and exhibitors that focused on health and wellness, and the wide variety of student groups and departments on campus who connect to the health and wellness topic, and how, again, that's a really important career path that people don't always think of when they think of STEM, but so connected, so very much a part of STEM and STEAM.
How many people do you think, I mean, you said you had students, it was open to the public as well. How many people attended? Do you have like a breakdown or anything like that?
So we do our best to estimate. It's an open house style event. We don't require people to register, but based on, we know we had probably between 2,500 to 3,000 people go through the haunted lab alone. Wow. So we're estimating, by the time you think of all of the people that participated and attended, it was above 5,000 people that were on campus to celebrate STEM, which is amazing.
Awesome. Well, hey, Kristen, I know we wanted to give you a chance to kind of decompress after the big event, and think about, how it went and so on before we got back in touch with you. Have you started to make any plans for next year?
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us anything about them, or should we circle back around next? I mean, we'll probably circle back around next year, but
absolutely.
Anything you can tell us about?
What I can say is next year is the 15th annual STEM Fest.
Ooh.
So it is hard to believe that we have been doing this for 15 years. It's been amazing to watch it grow over all that time. So we are already starting to think about what can we do to really make year 15 special. So yeah, we're no concrete plans yet, but planning has started.
All right.
Ideas are circling. Okay. We've just had a big debrief with my team actually on Tuesday, when one of the Post-it notepads was big ideas for 2024. So
plans are already in the works.
Yep. Who should be our big guest? Should we bring in a big guest? Should we do something collaborative art sculpts? There's so many different ideas that are floating around of how to make the 15th year really special.
Excellent. Well, we won't keep you any longer. Thank you for that update. And for our viewers and listeners, we did a much more in-depth interview with Dr. Brynteson during episode 1, where Kristen talks about the NIU STEM and STEAM framework, and how that can be used in K-12 education. So definitely go back to episode 1, check that out. And Kristen, if people want to get in touch with you to learn more about the framework or to, help support or be a part of STEAM Fest next year, how can people get in touch with you and learn more?
So you can always email me at kbrynteson@niu.edu. You can find our website, niu.edu/NIU STEAM. On that website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see where you can sign up for our e-blast. Our e-blast comes out bi-monthly, always packed full of great information, notices of some of the new things coming up. We will probably in the spring be launching some new teacher professional development, which we're starting to plan and getting excited about.
Cool.
Summer camps, we're already thinking summer camps. So summer camp opportunities, but visit the website, sign up for the newsletter. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We're on all of those places as well.
Very good. Okay. Well, Kristen, thank you for your time today. Enjoy I hope you get a little downtime before you start ramping up for next year. But if you haven't checked out NIU STEAM, check out the show notes for this episode, and you'll find direct links to all of that, including Kristen's full-length interview during episode 1. Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the LTC 1-to-1 podcast.
You can find and subscribe to this video podcast on YouTube.
Or listen to the audio by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast was produced by the Learning Technology Center of Illinois, a program of the Illinois State Board of Education. Learn more about the LTC at ltcillinois.org.